Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, another prisoner escapes at SeaTac. Why are we bringing the prisoners through there at all? But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is in serious, serious trouble. As more and more of the ballots are counted here in Seattle, we know from the primary that after a primary here in Seattle, we know from past history that the progressives always somehow magically manage to get more ballots afterwards. So all those late ballots, they are breaking for Katie Wilson, who's a far-left lunatic. Is that any different from Bruce Harrell, who's trying to be a far-left lunatic? No, not really. Somebody recently was begging me to endorse Bruce Harrell so that could help him possibly get more votes. I said, you want me to choose between a pile of crap and a pile of garbage and say which one smells better? There's no choice. You're Ace Ventura in the second movie when nature calls, when a spear goes into one leg and a spear goes into the other leg. That's what it is with the Seattle mayoral race. No matter who wins, Seattle loses. So because he is so desperate, he wants to take any win he can. So he posts this. Ready? This is him bragging about his wins. Proud that Seattle is named one of the most walkable cities in the entire nation. From the Overlook Walk to 22 miles of new sidewalks, that'll be added through the voter-approved transportation levy. We're making sure everyone can move safely and easily to join our city. The comments on this are amazing. First of all, is Seattle a pedestrian nirvana? Okay, let's break this down. For those of you that don't live here in Seattle, any sidewalk you go on, you have to wonder what you're tripping over and look out for needles in most parts of the city. Let's do that first. But here, I want you to imagine you're a tourist who came to Seattle and saw this. This from the Seattle PD Scanner Chatter, D Scanner Chatter over on Twitter. SPD and a federal officer out with a female at Alaskan Way South and South Washington. She declothed herself and is climbing on cars that were stopped in traffic. May have caused some minor damage to one. She's being identified. This was posted 10 minutes ago. Literally 10 minutes ago. Well done, everybody. Really, just well done. This is what you're bragging about? Look how walkable our city is. Really? Really? You literally have people in wheelchairs that are filing complaints against the city because they can't use the sidewalks because there's too many homeless encampments. But you put this up. The day before a video went viral locally. Como 4 News, Jeremy Harris over there, one of the few good reporters left in the Seattle area, got a hold of the witness video from the waterfront shooting. Okay, this thing has gone mega viral. It's over on all my social media accounts, at the Hofffather on X, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram. So you see in this video, in front of a Starbucks at the waterfront 2 weeks ago, they had just opened the waterfront 6 days before, spent $800 million on this waterfront project. And what happens 6 days afterwards, in the middle of the day, at the height of tourist season, there is a guy in a wheelchair who's a U.S. Navy veteran. And he's got American flags on his little scooter, and he's got some veteran patches. And apparently, allegedly, even though there's video of it, Gregory William Tim was mad and accused him of stolen valor and may have ripped off one of the patches. Well, the person in the scooter wheelchair thing got very, very upset about this. So he pulls out a Bowie knife, it looked like, a really, really big knife. And then what happens? Gregory William Tim starts shuffling around in his backpack. So wheelchair guy doesn't know what he's going for, and wheelchair guy starts pulling out an airsoft gun. So Guy with backpack pulls out a gun, points it at wheelchair guy, and shoots at him in the middle of the day. This video is there for everybody to see. Just shoots at him, demanding to see the guy's ID. So that's the whole stolen valor thing that's going on. This is going on in the middle of the day in Seattle. And I love how Seattle officials claim, crime is down. Violent crime is down. No, it's not. No, it's not. Do the streets look better? Do you feel safer here in Seattle? Most people don't. So I have a question for all of you here in the Seattle area. I have a question for you in the Tacoma area. I have a question for those listening in New York and Los Angeles and Chicago. Do you want a federal intervention in your city? Is that what you want? The solutions around here are pathetic. Yesterday we told you how Seattle has expanded it. A grant program to help small businesses tackle crime. Oh, we going to get them security guards? No. It's just going to clean up graffiti and repair windows that are smashed. And it's not even going to give you enough money to do that. And we're expanding it. So it was so popular that now we're going to pay for more damage and more damage. Maybe put that money into cops? Crazy idea, I know. Sean Barnes, this is hard for him, our Seattle police chief, who had this brilliant new idea of a pilot program where he's going to send cops to crime hotspots. Wow, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Washington, D.C., going from 180 murders last year to 176 murders this year, that is not the brag you think it is. Saying, oh, look, crime's going down. You shouldn't be having that many murders in our nation's capital. You have carjackings are through the roof. Car break-ins are through the roof. So saying, oh, crime's going down from its record highs. Oh, great. Well, each year you've been hitting a higher and higher record. So now you're still up in that range and you're saying, oh, well, things have been getting better. Why are you sending in the National Guard? My friends, would you want the National Guard sent in to your city? Now, put that in context with this for a minute. This is an article from Channel 4 ABC in Washington, D.C. A D.C. police commander is under investigation for allegedly making changes to crime statistics in his district. The Metropolitan Police Department confirmed Michael Pulliam was placed on paid administrative leave in mid-May. That happened just a week after Pulliam filed an equal employment opportunity complaint against an assistant chief and a police union accused the department of deliberately falsifying crime data. So you guys want to tell me your crime numbers are going down when anybody who lives in D.C. says crime's not going down? What are you talking about? So what's fascinating is that so many people are complaining about what's going on the streets, but then Trump sends in the National Guard. Oh, no, that's too much. That's too much. Don't do that. So I ask again, would you want the National Guard sent into your city? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because as it turns out, a lot of people in Washington, D.C. have no problem with this whatsoever. In fact, here's MSNBC's Chris Matthews. Chris Matthews, haven't heard from him in forever. Chris Matthews back on air on MSNBC to tell us what's going on.
And the murder rate, you can't keep saying violent crime is down, but the murder rate's up. To the average person, the murder rate's about life and death. You don't brag about a rising murder rate. And the Democrats are, I agree with you, Mika, they're falling into the trap of defending what's indefensible.
It's a trap. Yes, it's a trap. I mean, if it's not a winner politically to say, oh, you're wrong, look at the data. Because, you know, if one violent crime happens in a very heavily populated part of the city, people hear about it, and it's visceral. They don't want it. And they'll gravitate to the person who appears to be doing something about it.
That's MSNBC. That's Chris Matthews. Chris Matthews is saying that on MSNBC. Yeah, saying you're on the side of crime is not really a winner. So there's all these lunatics protesting in D.C. Okay, it's a day that ends in Y. There's always lunatics protesting in D.C. Does this seem organic to you?
We come in, and this is our city. Whose city? Whose city? Whose city?
Our city.
Whose city?
Our city.
Free D.C. Free D.C.
Yeah, they're all wearing T-shirts that were made really quickly and placards that were printed really quickly, and they all have identical ones. That was done really, really quickly, and they're on the side of crime? Is that what they're really protesting? According to Fox News, a crowd rental company, by the way, I had no idea they had such things. But you know what they're for? They're for when you need seat fillers at stadiums. They're for when you need people for parades. They're for when you need people to show up in protest, apparently. They're really meant for when you're filming a movie or a commercial and you need a crowd or something of that nature. But here, they're renting them for protests. A crowd rental company has seen a massive uptick in inquiries regarding its services in Washington, D.C. amid President Donald Trump's move to federalize the police force in the nation's capital. Quote, right now, D.C. inquiries are up roughly 400% compared to the same period in 2024. Crowds on Demand CEO Adam Swart told Fox News, adding that the time period he is referencing is May to July. The company always sees a spike in requests during what Swart calls high-stakes political moments. Quote, a large share are focused on opposing Trump's policies in Washington and raising alarms about government overreach. We're weighing those offers carefully because while there's truth in saying D.C.'s local government has been an abject failure in keeping citizens safe, there's also a real danger in putting too much power in federal hands. The balance of power matters. This is a guy on the left. This is a guy who happily rents out the crowds, who's telling them, yeah, you just said the quiet part out loud, man. There's no organic protest to what's going on. These are paid protesters out in the streets. I wonder how many are paid protesters in our area. You know, Mike, you know what we should do during the break? We should do a Google search to find out how many of these crowd companies are around here. I didn't know there was such a thing. So now I'm going to have to find out how many are around here, and then maybe we'll ask them for a comment. How many times have you been rented out by Kshama Sawant? How many times have you been rented out by any of these guys? Because Kshama Sawant's merry band of idiots, it seems like she doesn't have the funding for them anymore, does it? The last time we made fun of her, what'd she have, 5 idiots? 6 idiots? Now, back then, she used to have 20, 30, 40. And we know she was giving the homeless people sandwiches and T-shirts. And we know she was bringing in people from outside of Seattle. But what if she was just hiring them from these crowd companies? That seems to be what the game plan is here in Washington, D.C. This isn't organic at all. And what's really going on here? What's really going on? Judge Jeanine Pirro, who's now one of our fine government officials, explained what's actually happening in D.C. Tell me if this sounds familiar to what's happening around here.
Here's the problem. Assuming that they're 17 years, older than 17 years old, I can get the case. If they're under 18 years of age, I can only get the case if it's murder, rob one, rape, even if they shoot a gun but don't kill you, I can't get it. So the law has to be changed. As the president said, cashless bail. That has to be changed. All right, then, even assuming I get the case, I get jurisdiction, I get a conviction, the D.C. Council has given the judges the ability to give probation on shootings. And so then it's up to them. All of these things, the Youth Rehabilitation Incarceration Reduction Act, and now they want to seal records. So if we work hard, we get a conviction, they want to wipe it out. So that needs all to be changed.
Okay. So this is exactly what's happening here in Seattle, here in King County, here in Washington, with gang violence. They're making these kids do their work for them as part of a gang initiation, knowing that the kid won't get real time. Remember that clip we played for you about a year ago now, where that juvenile was so surprised he wasn't getting home monitoring that he was actually getting sent to jail because of his crimes? It's the exact same thing in every blue city. And the gangs are onto it, and the gangs are taking advantage of it. So Judge Jeanine has a press conference where she has these parents who's lost their children to crime in D.C. And she went off on the reporters for claiming she was just using them.
It's never enough. You tell these families crime has dropped. You tell the mother of the intern who was shot going out from McDonald's near the Washington Convention Center, oh, crime is down. You tell the kid who was just beat the hell and back with a severe concussion and a broken nose, crime is down. No, that falls on deaf ears. And my ears are deaf to that. And that's why I fight the fight. Thank you.
And she's out. Drops the mic and she's out. She's right. She's right. Democrats are once again on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue. Everybody wants their city cleaned up. Everybody wants to feel safe going to McDonald's or going to the bank or going for a walk through a park. And once again, the Trump administration has managed to put the Democrats on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue. This issue is so unpopular for them that they have to hire protesters to make their point for them. Everybody wants their city to be safe. Do you know how Bruce Harrell could have been successful? By doing all the things he actually said he was going to do. By cleaning up Seattle. By hiring more police officers, and he really hasn't. You're looking at a net flat, and in fact, you're probably going to see more officers leaving because a whole bunch of them are due for retirement soon. So by actually enforcing the law, by actually prosecuting crime, Ann Davidson would have been in great shape, and she was doing okay. But I think the political establishment got a hold of her because then what are you doing? You're suing the Trump administration, and everybody says, well, crime hasn't gotten better. Things haven't gotten better around here. So you look at all these people who are fighting for their lives politically, who ran on a moderate slate. Of course, Seattle's swinging back to the left because all the moderates didn't do what they said they were actually going to accomplish. And as a result, you're losing conservative support who are just staying home for the election. If Bruce Harrell had actually done what he said he was going to do, people would say the city's better. Do you think Seattle's better? But then again, you're walking a very, very, very fine line. A very fine line. Where now as conservatives, we're asking for federal intervention. That's a very, very, very fine line because I remember when we all wanted the Patriot Act. There were very few people against the Patriot Act because they said when you turn over a piece of your freedom to get security, you have problems. Look, Trump can do what he's doing in Washington, D.C., but the question is, would you want him doing it in your city? But let's look at whose responsibility it is to quell problems in your city. It's your governor's problems. If the city isn't working or it's overwhelmed, it's the governor. And I remember during the BLM Antifa riots of 2020, it was everywhere. You never knew where there was going to be another protest or something else. Jay Inslee did bring in the National Guard. You know what they were doing? They were giving out sandwiches to homeless people. Giving out sandwiches to homeless people. Not stopping the riots. Not shutting down the autonomous zone. Do you remember the first couple days of the riots? Jay Inslee sent them in 3 days late and unarmed to deal with the riots. Here's something else. If Democrats didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. Kathy Hochul, a clip came up today right before the show. Kathy Hochul, just last year, was bragging about sending the National Guard into New York City subways to deal with crime. So it's okay for her to do it, but not okay for President Trump to do it. Let me know what you think. Would you want the National Guard sent into Seattle to deal with the crime? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, your calls, your texts, plus a third fugitive escapes custody at SeaTac. Why are we still flying these guys out of there? We'll talk about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. So I did, during the break, I did a little search for rent seat fillers, rent crowds, and I think the Google steered me wrong. Rentafriend.com. I'm a little worried about what kind of site that is. I am not clicking that link. I don't want to know what kind of friends they're sending my way.
That's brave doing that on a work computer.
Yeah. We're gonna stop clicking these. Yeah, we're gonna stay away from that. But what I am seeing is you can actually rent crowds here in Seattle. You can rent them for events. You can rent them for festivals. You can rent them for anything you want. And apparently, rent a friend if you need companionship. So I'm gonna X this out from my work computer here. But yeah, you can do that. And given how, I would say, one of our texters put it well, how lackluster Sawant's protests have been recently, I'm kind of wondering if she just doesn't have the funds to get these guys to show up anymore. Yeah, that's kind of my question here. Meanwhile, here's some other stuff that's going around here before we get back to the phone and text line. Authorities are now searching for a 20-year-old man who escaped custody at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport on Monday evening, marking the third such incident at the airport in recent months. Okay, hang on a second here, guys. We've had 3 fugitives, 1 illegal alien, 2 fugitives who are being escorted to other places, now escaped from SeaTac. At what point do we say, Boeing Field literally does flights for prisoners? Why are we not flying them out of there? Maybe it's cheaper to go commercial rather than have your own plane to take you somewhere. Maybe it's better for the environment. But we clearly have a security risk because this guy, John Nino, who's got a face tattoo, and I sent a request to ICE. Is John Nino in the U.S. legally? Is John Nino part of a gang? Who is John Nino? I sent that request to ICE. Haven't heard back yet. He managed to escape via the light rail. That's the second guy who escaped on the light rail. At what point do you say, hey, guys, you got a fugitive headed your way, close the doors? Remember the video we saw of the last guy? The last guy pushing people out of the way at security and at the gate, and he just runs off and somehow he gets to the light rail? Call Sound Transit and say, this is the police. Shut down the train. Stop the train at the next station. Don't let it go anywhere. Have cops meet there. We know that's not going to happen. This guy escaped from the Washington Department of Corrections. John Nino fled from 2 DOC officers around 8 p.m. while on the 4th floor of the airport garage. Nino reportedly ran toward the SeaTac light rail station, crossing the pedestrian bridge on the station's east side toward International Boulevard before disappearing across nearby railroad tracks in the direction of Highway 99. Nino is 6'2" and weighs 154 pounds, was last seen wearing a red coat and gray sweatpants. He was on community supervision for second-degree robbery and had recently been transported back to Washington after being arrested in New Mexico. The DOC urges the public not to approach him and to call 911 with any sightings. Let's not forget, in May, you had Cedric Stevenson, who was caught on surveillance video running from 2 bounty hunters at SeaTac, still in shackles, before boarding the light rail. He was arrested a few weeks later at Seattle's First Hill neighborhood. Let's not forget, we also had Gerson Enrique Castaneda Pinche, a man from El Salvador who fled from ICE agents last month while being taken to the Northwest ICE Processing Center in Tacoma. He reportedly jumped out of the backseat of a car near the airport's rental car facility. Court documents say he had been in ICE custody following a domestic violence conviction in California earlier in the year, was being transported to the facility to await immigration removal proceedings. So this is happening with regularity. Maybe this is something we shouldn't do anymore, especially since there's a lot of civilians wandering around at SeaTac Airport. Seems like a target-rich environment. Maybe we need to figure out another solution. And also, can we deal with the light rail thing? The second guy to escape via the light rail. Give me a break. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Hey, nothing much. You know, what I think and what I do see with this problem is, as far as law enforcement is with Katie Wilson, she's not just a far left-leaning lunatic, is that I've heard that if she is elected, she will try and basically make Seattle Trump-proof. I would say, let's make Seattle Katie Wilson-proof.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think you're going to do that without getting rid of a few voters in the city, and I don't think we can do that. But I will say is that as Katie Wilson proof, it doesn't look like it's going to be Katie Wilson proof. It looks like Katie Wilson is going to be the next mayor of Seattle right now based on the polling, and Bruce Harrell has only himself to blame for that. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from frenemy Bennett, the protester. Bennett, have you seen paid protesters in our neighborhood? You would know about such things.
Yeah, it's your rent-a-frenemy, actually. No, I mean you tell me I could have been paid all this time.
That's what I'm saying.
Getting arrested, and I could have been.
Do you feel ripped off because you could have been paid for everything you were doing?
Well, let's just say next time they arrest me, I sure hope they take me through SeaTac, because apparently that's the easiest way to shake them.
Very good, very good. What's on your mind today?
You mentioned Ed Davison, and I want to come back to like the crime rate thing in a second, but we had said on the show, so I think we have an obligation to follow up, how I'd filed a complaint because she had listed Dan Strauss from the city council. She had listed him as an endorser briefly on her website before.
Yeah, but like I said, hang on a second here, Bennett. That is your weakest argument of all the arguments you gave us on the show. That one is the kind of thing where somebody gets political pressure and can change their mind. That's one which is your weakest argument. You've got the judge stuff. You've got the other public disclosures. Why is that the one you're fighting?
I understand this, but this was not the case of somebody changing their mind. Like, he never actually endorsed her, and he said that he was false. She had listed him as an endorser where it wasn't actually true. And so I wanted to follow up because we'd mentioned the filing of the complaint, and the resolution was, I got an email from them yesterday saying, we did look into it. So the campaign emailed them back, and what they said exactly was there were plans for a discussion with Councilmember Strauss regarding a potential endorsement. During the recent website update, a draft target list, not the final endorsement list, was mistakenly sent to our web designer. End quote. So I was always 99% sure they were going to say this was a mistake. But the thing is, like, most of these kinds of things are mistakes too. Like, remember we were talking about Sean Scott, where he was using campaign finance funds for haircuts because he thought he had to look good as part of the campaign. He thought it was allowed.
Whoa. Hang on. That was not a mistake. He was warned multiple times that was a problem. In fact, he's got another PDR violation PDC violation being investigated right now. You don't rack up $11,000, which was supposed to be a lot higher than that in fines if you made a mistake. He's lucky he's not in jail if they could even put you in jail for that kind of stuff. The haircut thing, that's a big no-no, and he was warned by a lot of people at the time. I'll say is that, here's the thing, Bennett. I see if you agree with me on this, then I got to run. Would you agree that 99% of the time stupid explains a lot of things?
I mean, I would say yes, accidents. I always figured they would say it was unintentional, but that's an argument for there being a minor penalty, not for being no penalty at all. And they said, because when you dismiss cases because somebody says it's an accident, that's actually a moral hazard situation. You're creating an incentive for people not to run a tight ship because when something like this happens, you can always say it was an accident. So I think the solution is small penalty, but not zero penalty.
Yeah, I'll say is like I said before, buddy, I think that this is the weakest part of your case when you have so many other things. And also I'll say something else right now based on the polling. I think you're spending a lot of effort. You don't have to. I don't think you're going to have to worry about this much longer, but I think Seattle's going to have to worry about the person running against her. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, lots more of your calls and your texts. You guys are blowing up my text line today. I'll read some of them during the break. But also the GOP has a new commercial targeting Mamdani. Will it make a difference? We'll play it for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. You guys are hardcore over on the text line. You guys want that National Guard good and hard here in Washington. Jeff and Ken says, yes, send in the feds, start in Olympia, and work their way north. Johnny says, yes on the National Guard, please. From the 360, definitely clean it up. Tacoma and Olympia, too. Even in Bonnie Lake says, please send in the National Guard into Seattle and take out the trash. Wow. Wow. Oh, wait, this is the best one. Dan Smith says, I want Dirty Harry, Paul Kersey, Frank Castle, Snake Plissken, Detective John McClane, the Lone Ranger. Just lists everybody who wants to come in and clean up Seattle. Oh, this is great. This is absolutely great. And then we've got this one here from the 206. Somebody is the mayor of Seattle, but it's not Bruce Harrell. Yeah, I think that's very, very true. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from George in Enumclaw. George, what's going on?
Yeah, I got a solution for these guys getting away in SeaTac and all that. And
yes.
Star Trek dealt with this a long time ago. They put these collars on people who are disobedient, and they get, out of hand. They just get choked.
I think
it's like the dog collars we got, just get away from them.
That sounds more like the Running Man, where they blow up your head if you go outside the virtual prison walls. That's what that one sounds like.
Well, they'll pay pretty close attention to how close they are to their guys that are taking to where they're going.
You guys are militant today. Militant. George, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Let's see what's going on in Washington, D.C. Let's chill everybody out. How about some entertainment, huh? President Trump was announcing what's going to be going on at the Kennedy Center this year and says that he's going to be hosting the 2025 Kennedy Center Honors later this year.
I've been asked to host. I said, I'm the president of the United States. Get much higher ratings. I said, I don't care. I'm president of the United States. I won't do it. They said, please. And then Susie Wells said to me, sir, I'd like you to host. I said, okay, Susie, I'll do it. That's the power she's got. But I just, so I have agreed to host. Do you believe what I have to do? And I didn't want to do it, okay? They're going to say, he insisted. I did not insist. But I think it will be quite successful, actually. It's been a long time. I used to host the Apprentice finales, and we did rather well with that. So I think we're going to do very well because we have some great honorees, some really great ones.
Okay. I love President Trump, but whose idea do you really think this was? He's hosted Saturday Night Live before. In fact, Saturday Night Live's a shame they even put him on. I think they censored that actual episode. Some of those clips they never put up anymore. It's so rare to even see those things around. I mean, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. I thought that chicken clip you see on social media all the time of the Trump chicken, right? It's weird, it's goofy, but okay. So he's going to be hosting the awards, by the way. I'd watch him. You know how many sound clips we're going to get out of that episode? Let me tell you, we're going to have the best award show ever. You in the media, the fake media, you suck. You suck. You're going to cover this and say Trump was terrible, but Trump's the best. I mean, it's going to be great. It's going to be funny. And if they're smart, they'll hire some people to write some jokes for him like they used to do at some of these other events, like the White House Correspondents' Dinner or any of this stuff. So who's getting honored at this thing? Well, a lot of people are getting honored, but one band in particular, when he said this, it just lit up my face. Not because it was the band, even though I liked the band, but it's the way he said the band.
And finally, we'll be honoring one of the greatest rock bands of all time, Kiss. So Kiss was formed in 1973 in New York City by founding band members and incredible people, by the way. Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss. Kiss became a global phenomenon, sold more than 100 million records worldwide, and produced 30 gold albums and lots of other things they produced. They made a fortune. And they're great people, and they deserve it, and they work hard, and they're still working hard, and it's an honor to present Kiss. Thank you very much. Got it? Yeah. Thank you.
You're so anti-establishment, and now you're being honored at the Kennedy Center by the President of the United States. I love Kiss. I absolutely love Kiss. They produced a lot of other things like coffins. Is that what we're talking about? Music and coffins and anything else you want? Oh, I'm going to watch this.
Kiss.com.
Yes, that's good, Mike. That's very, very good. Very good, Mike. Yes. Oh, this will be very, very entertaining. I'm actually excited for this whole thing. I don't like the award shows anymore, but that'll be fun. Meanwhile, talking about publicity, the Democrats are getting absolutely destroyed in this new ad by the GOP. The question is it too little, too late? Here's the ad. And, of course, there's the pictures to go with it, but we're a radio show. Give a listen and tell me if you think this is going to make a difference.
Project 2026. Hakeem Jeffries' plan to remake America. Raise taxes on working families. Impeach President Trump.
Donald Trump must be removed from office.
I'd like to impeach the bastard right now.
Open the border. Restart the invasion.
Abolishing ICE, which I support.
It's about defunding the police.
They riot. They lose.
We are unapologetic about our socialism.
The abolition of private property.
To chip at it aggressively until we can unravel the whole system.
They want to turn America into a socialist, crime-filled dystopia.
We're going to take back America, and it starts today.
Are you going to let them?
So I think it's a good ad, but I think it's a bad ad at the same time. And let me tell you why. It opens with Project 2026. Anybody who was going to listen to you who's on the other side immediately goes, oh, wait, I remember that Project 2025 stuff. Nope, don't want it. You should have come up with another name for it. And now what you're doing is, did attacking AOC all these years work? No. You tried striking her down, and you made her more powerful than you can possibly imagine. She's the number one fundraiser in the Democrat Party by leaps and bounds because people cannot stop talking about her. This ad is trying to take down the Democrats, not actually Hakeem Jeffries or Mamdani or any of these guys. It's trying to take down the lower level ones, which is why they're running it against Democrats who are not known right now. They're trying to rope them in with all that. It might be effective, but the problem is in the process, you're blowing up Mamdani. In the process, you're blowing up Hakeem Jeffries. And you know what would have been more effective? You say the Democrats want to do these socialist policies, and then you show that grocery store, the one that's going bust, show a clip of that video. You say they're in favor of crime, then show some of the crime things we know have happened. You say they're in favor of open borders, do that. Don't quote the Democrats. Stay away from that. Because by using their clips, you're talking about them, and you have made them powerful in doing so. Mamdani has a 17-point lead on Andrew Cuomo. You are going to make Mamdani win by continuing to talk about him this much. Let me know if you agree with me or disagree with me. Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, the Toronto Film Festival bans a documentary for using the Hamas footage for October 6th, claiming that Hamas holds the copyright. I kid you not. We'll tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. This is one of the most insane cancel feature moments I've ever seen. The Toronto Film Festival, according to Deadline, has uninvited the documentary The Road Between Us, The Ultimate Rescue by Canadian filmmaker Barry Average from a spot in the festival's fall lineup. I actually know of this movie. I was very much looking forward to seeing it when it comes to Seattle. I'm obviously not going to the Toronto Film Festival, but what the movie's about, it's about a retired Israeli Defense Force general named Noam Tibon, who went to rescue his granddaughters on October 7th from the Nova Festival, and in the process rescued not only his granddaughters, but a bunch of strangers he had never met before from the festival. They were surrounded by Hamas terrorists on October 7th, and he was able to rescue them. He rescued survivors of the massacre. He helped wounded Israeli soldiers. This thing was covered by 60 Minutes in October of 2023. People saw this story and cried. I was one of them. So, a spokesperson for the Toronto International Film Festival told Deadline, the invitation for the Canadian documentary film The Road Between Us, The Ultimate Rescue, was withdrawn because general requirements for inclusion in the festival and conditions that were requested when the film was initially invited were not met, including, wait for it, legal clearance of all footage. Wait, you're worried about copyright footage from the Hamas attack, which the terrorists live streamed for the purposes of showing the world? Hang on a second. Hamas holds a copyright on that? Or are you guys worried about the Hamas copyright on that? Oh, you know what? No more showing Holocaust videos. The estate of Hitler might need a little kickback from that. How about Goebbels and Goring and the rest of them? Oh, we got to send them a check every time we do a documentary on the Holocaust. Are you kidding me with this? This is insane. The purpose of the requested conditions was to protect the Toronto International Film Festival from legal implications and allow the festival to manage and mitigate anticipated and known risks around the screening of a film about highly sensitive subject matter, including potential threat of significant disruption. Hang on. So is it a copyright issue? Or is it you're worried about the protesters who support Hamas? No matter what, you guys look like absolute idiots here. Absolute morons. If you want to say, hey guys, we want to show your video, but can you help us out with a little extra money for security? Fine. I understand that. But that's not what you're saying. You're worried you're going to get protested by people who support terrorist groups, which shows a movie. You have this movie here which is showing the terrorists' own footage of the atrocities they committed. This is one of the craziest things I have ever heard. The team behind The Road Between Us told Deadline, we are shocked and saddened that a film festival has defied its mission and censored its own programming by refusing this film. Ultimately, film is an art form that stimulates debate from every perspective that can both entertain us and make us uncomfortable. A film festival lays out the feast, and the audience decides what they will or won't see. We are not political filmmakers, nor are we activists. We are storytellers. We remain defiant. We will release the film, and we invite audiences, broadcasters, and streamers to make up their own mind once they have seen it. You know what? I'm going to reach out to these guys, and I'm going to say, you know what? I'd love to have you at my synagogue. Or you know what? I'd love to have you at a community center because I really want to see the movie. I'm going to reach out to these guys because I think that what this is going to do, this story has gone viral. So you idiots who didn't want this film screened now have a whole bunch of people going, I didn't know they were making that movie. I should check that out and see what all the fuss is about. So congratulations. You played yourselves, because right here, what you guys have done is brought more attention to the thing you didn't want anybody seeing. In fact, they even suggested, this is the film festival, suggested that they change the title of the film, and the filmmakers complied with that, which I would have told them to pound sand, and I would have blown up that story. You remember this craziness with Aidan Golan, who's the singer out of Israel on Eurovision, where Eurovision wouldn't even let her use the original title for her song that sold a gajillion copies internationally, which was called October Rain, for what happened on October 7th, and they made her change it to Hurricane. She did that, and they still had protesters. I think she sold more albums than the person who even won Eurovision. What'd she come in, third, second, something like that? This is crazy. And anytime you guys do this, you bring more attention to the thing you didn't want seen. I forgot that this movie was coming out right away. I forgot this movie was coming out soon. I thought it had already come out, and I was going to go look it up. But then I'm thinking to myself, maybe we should do a screening for these guys. I think that would be a lot of fun. Well, you bet that right after the show today, I'm going to be emailing the people from this and say, hey, let's bring it to Seattle. You like protesters? We're going to have a whole bunch of them out here for you. Will be a lot of fun. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including why is Tacoma suing Sound Transit? Aren't you guys like buddies with all this stuff? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Glenn Morgan is back to talk to us about more evidence found of voters not having all the right data to be registered to vote here in Washington. But before we get to any of that, my friends, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Alan Puyallup. Alan, what's going on?
Hi, Ari. Thank you for bringing me on. I just want to let you know about a little bit of history. A couple of decades ago, there was a movie called The Last Temptation of Christ that was put out, and it was hugely protested. And it ended up for that weekend being the highest, I believe it was the highest grossing film, which after that it fell off the charts because it wasn't a good movie. But I was going to sit there and say, well, if they're going to protest it, bring on the protest. You'll probably get a lot more people coming to the movie if history bears itself out.
In fact, I think the Toronto Film Festival would probably get a lot more eyes on it because people would go, what are they protesting over there? Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, let's take the which one is it? The Mel Gibson movie. Which one was that? The Passion of the Christ. So The Passion of the Christ, here's one. There were some anti-Semitic imagery in the movie, but it was so subtle. Unless you really know what you're looking for, you're not even going to know it. It's going to fly over most people's heads. And when I mention it, when we're having discussions with people about it, they didn't even realize it was in the movie. But the mistake was a lot of people protested the movie, and because they protested the movie, they made it even more popular. More people went to see it, and The Passion of the Christ, what, #1 box office movie in however long? I mean, I think it beat Titanic, right?
I believe it did.
Yep, I believe it did. So, yeah, that was the kind of thing where I was telling people at the time, I go, guys, it is so subtle, the stuff that's in this. Nobody's going to get it. You protesting it is making a much bigger deal out of it. There's one time I disagreed with my co-religionist. Alan, great point. Think about all the CDs we used to buy that said parental advisory on them. What happened anytime they slapped one of those?
Now you're really getting into history when you mention CDs.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Some kid listening to the podcast is going, Ma, what's a CD? Or he's just Googling it right now on his phone or asking Chat GPT. Alan, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Ken in Enumclaw. Ken, what's up, man?
Hey, it's Tim, Ari. I just wanted to comment on your question earlier about Trump's use of federal troops in D.C. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the few places we disagree where I just hate the idea of more government power, more federal power specifically, and I can just see it becoming more and more common. It's setting a precedent, and we don't know who will be in the Oval Office next. I don't like the idea that federal troops are being used to replace local law enforcement and setting that precedent for the future. It seems like it's driving us in a more and more federalized direction, especially militarily in local use. I think it leads us down a path we don't want to go.
See, this is the conversation, Tim, that I wanted to have earlier. Unfortunately, you called now. I wanted to have it earlier, but no, let's have that discussion, okay? This is the discussion I wanted to have. And the reason I mentioned the Patriot Act is because remember after 9/11, people said, we want to do anything for our security. And we passed the Patriot Act, and we've seen how it was. Right. And we see how it's been abused. And this is one of the things I've had to eat crow on. Little 21-year-old Ari Hoffman, who thought it was a good idea at the time. I'll tell you is that now that I'm older and wiser, I see how it can be abused. And I'll tell you, think about this for a second. Joe Biden weaponized the FBI to go after parents who disagreed with a curriculum. What precedent is this setting that now? What happens if the next president is a Democrat and doesn't like something Republicans are doing? Now, mind you, they're going to have a hard time convincing anybody because now with social media and all, they're going to be called out for their nonsense. And we know that Trump's doing this, but we happen to trust Trump. The problem is what happens with these things in the hands of your worst enemy. And I think that a lot of people have their concerns about this, Tim.
Yeah, there is a flip side, though. So I think there is a reason to have these tools available, and I think that the biggest thing is having a goal. If you can get in, fulfill your goal, show that it was a good use of that and there was no overreach, that's a best case scenario. And in the case of the homeless problem, it's essentially just a drug problem. And the drug problem is related to gangs and trafficking across the borders. And so you've got a problem that can't just necessarily be one state. I mean, drugs are flowing across states. So you might need federal tools to be used for that thing, which is clearly overrunning America. But you need to have clear goals so that there's not future gray areas that just expand into more and more power.
Let me give you an example. You want a term we use called an exit strategy. You want to say, okay, well, you're sending in the National Guard. What's your end game? Is it going to be 30 days when Congress approves or doesn't approve this? Because don't forget, you got 30 days, and Congress has to approve this. Or is it going to be when crime goes down X percentage, when X amount of people are in jail? What's your exit strategy? Now, normally, the Trump administration, even during the first Trump administration, had a plan. And they said, we want to get to this goal. I'm kind of curious about what it is right now. What exactly do you want to get to in D.C.? And I think that would make a lot of people on our side who are uncomfortable with this feel a lot more comfortable. Tim, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, or you want to disagree on the National Guard being sent to D.C., or you want to agree with it, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And Tim mentioned the homeless. And Trump has mentioned the homeless. Trump has said he wants to make D.C. safe again from the homeless. Give a listen.
We're going to be removing homeless encampments from all over our parks, our beautiful, beautiful parks, which now a lot of people can't walk on. They're very dirty, we got a lot of problems. But we've already started that. We're moving the encampments away, trying to take care of people. Some of those people, we don't know how they even got there. Some of those people are from different countries, different parts of the world. Nobody knows who they are. They have no idea, but they're there. We're getting rid of the people from underpasses and public spaces from all over the city. There are many places that they can go, and we're going to help them as much as you can help. But they'll not be allowed to turn our capital into a wasteland for the world to see.
When is the last time you've been to Washington, D.C.? Maybe you've never been to Washington, D.C. I'm asking you, listening in your car, or listening on your mobile device, or listening however you're listening. I was in D.C. When was I in D.C., Mike? Like 3 months ago now when I was at the White House. So I'm in D.C., and I decided to go to the National Mall. And D.C. is a very walkable city. And I just wanted to go check out the museums and see a few sites while I was there. And while walking around the mall, let me describe to you what it looked like at the time. Homeless person protest, homeless person activist group, homeless person protest, person whacked out on drugs protest. That's what the whole city looked like. That's what the whole city looked like. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. Clearing them out, good idea. And plus, you're not saving any lives by keeping these people on the streets, even though Antifa may tell you that's what they're doing. That's not what they're doing. We're having the exact same problems here in Seattle. We're no stranger to any of these. According to Como News, city crews cleaned out a homeless encampment at a park in North Seattle where 2 people were shot and killed earlier this week. The gunman has not been caught. This is what it takes. This is what it takes to get a homeless encampment swept in Seattle. There has to be 2 people shot. The Unified Care Team, which handles homelessness issues for the city of Seattle, posted notices on Tuesday night for people to leave Virgil Flame Park. Neighbors said the cleanup began early Wednesday morning and was completed by 9:30 a.m. The encampment has been growing in recent weeks. Tell me how leaving people on the street to be shot in a drug encampment where it's usually over drugs or something else or stealing somebody's generator or something. Tell me how that's compassionate. Tell me how that's compassionate. And we know what happens. The activists go out there, get some tents from REI, set them up a couple blocks away, and soon there's going to be a new encampment. This thing had been growing for weeks, and the city did not do anything about it. That's the problem. When a homeless encampment shows up, you got to deal with it right away. Right away. Otherwise, they're just going to stay and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, you have neighbors who routinely complained about the impacts of open drug use so close to a children's playground. What always goes hand in hand with the homeless encampments? It's always drugs. It's always crime. It's always mental health. It's always prostitution. It's always all of this every single time. Charles Hall told Como News, I just hope they get the person responsible in the city tents start to do more about the problem with the homeless, because being in the parks and kids playing and such, we just want to see it as a safe environment. If they were just our unsheltered neighbors, people wouldn't be scared anytime something like this moved into a neighborhood. It's not. They are drug encampments. They are not homeless encampments. It's people who are drugged out of their minds, and the drug dealers come there to sell them drugs, which they buy with money from whatever they've fenced or whatever they've stolen. So, of course, these things are filled with violence, and that's fighting over stuff and fighting over drugs and fighting over turf. And they always go into neighborhoods where they think they'll be left alone, where they're near parks or they're near playgrounds or they're near people's houses. The encampment has been swept before, but people returned with their tents earlier this summer. The double homicide was the final straw for many neighbors. Chris Meyer, another neighbor, said they got rid of all the leftover trash, but the campers came back. They came back in hordes. Because you know what they know? They know that now, because they just swept it, they can stay there for months before the city actually does something again. The cycle continues time and time and time again. Police said one of the shooting victims, a 40-year-old man, died at the park. The other man, who was 33, died at Harborview Medical Center a short time later. One weapon was recovered at the crime scene. Witnesses told police they saw a suspect run south from the park shortly before the shots were fired. It's not clear yet what led to the shooting. Should we take a guess? Was it drugs? Was it crime? Yeah, I would assume it's one of those two things. Homeless encampments are a magnet for this kind of stuff because they are not homeless encampments. They are drug encampments. And as long as Seattle continues to allow this nonsense, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Paul in Bonnie Lake. Paul, what's up?
Thank you, Ari, for taking my call. States are sovereign, but not supreme. Well, when a state becomes dysfunctional or a municipality becomes dysfunctional, somebody has to step in and take over. So with what President Trump is doing in D.C., how is that any different than Reconstruction?
Well, it's not, because what's happening in Washington, D.C. is, first of all, Trump's allowed to do it. The question is whether or not he's constitutionally allowed to do it in other states and other cities, but he's not doing it in other states and other cities. And when he did send in the federal government in other states and other cities, what we saw happen in those other states and other cities is that they were protecting federal assets, federal facilities. Now, in this case, he's allowed to do this, which is why all you've got is Muriel Bowser, who's yelling and screaming about it. But by now, they would have filed a lawsuit. By now, you would have seen that lawsuit filed. What happens anytime Nick Brown doesn't like something? Within seconds, boom shakalaka, he has filed a case. But here, let's not forget, D.C. is under control of the federal government. Paul, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show. You give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Switching gears to something I thought was going to be a story about homeless campers, but it wasn't. The city of Tacoma is suing Sound Transit and two contractors over damage done to electrical infrastructure during work on the light rail extension in 2022. According to King 5, the lawsuit, which was filed in Pierce County Superior Court last week, asks for repayment for the repair work along with attorney's fees and reasonable investigation and expert consultant fees. There were two separate incidents in August of 2022 that led the city to file the lawsuit. The first occurred on August 3rd when Sound Transit crews and contractors damaged 3 of 8 electrical conduits in a section of Commerce Street, according to the lawsuit. The subsequent repair work required a power outage to the surrounding area and a vault-to-vault rebuild, including installation of power lines. What the hell did they do to it? That's a lot of damage there, guys. I had a property which I was managing, which was actually right where First Avenue and East Marginal and all those things meet up right there in Georgetown. I had a sewer line. There was a fish company there that was putting their stuff down the tubes. How do I know it was them? Their tags were on everything. So what happens? It backs up and it blew up under First Avenue South. Dealing with the vaults, dealing with the vault repair, dealing with the city, dealing with traffic, dealing with all that. Holy cow, it was an absolute nightmare. I can only imagine what City of Tacoma had to go through. But I have a question. How inept are Sound Transit's contractors? Well, let's be real about this for a second. Do those escalators ever work for Sound Transit? 5 days later, the lawsuit alleges work crews damaged a second Tacoma power vault. A vault casting was shifted off the opening, and crews piled debris on top. When Tacoma Power stopped by to do routine maintenance work, they found significant concrete debris had fallen inside, pulling a primary circuit off the cable racks and partially covering the network's secondary backbone. In total, the repairs cost the city nearly $400,000. Tacoma sent invoices to Sound Transit and its contractor, Walsh Construction Company, and their subcontractor, the Dixon Company, but they have yet to receive any payment. The city argues that Sound Transit and its contractors breached their duty of care and are therefore liable to pay the damages. Tacoma is also asking for a pre-judgment interest. Sound Transit declined to comment. Well, yeah, but here's the thing. How much of our car tab money do you guys have right now? How much of our car tab? Well, it looks like Sound Transit's going over budget again, doesn't it? Now, who are these contractors? They are always behind schedule, and they are always over budget. Is it the kind of thing where you go, well, we're in so deep, we can't go with anybody else right now? And we know there's people who do that on their kitchen or do that on their bathroom. But how many years have we? Hang on, let's back up a second. When was the most expensive milkshake I ever bought? When I was driving in my Camaro. Okay, I gave that up when Jonah was 2, 3, and Izzy was born. That's when I gave up the Camaro. So, all right, 17, 18 years ago, they were building the first extension through South Seattle. And they detoured my Camaro over some gravel, and it ripped off the cow catcher on the low body kit on my Camaro and wouldn't give me the money to repair it, even though Sound Transit sent us that way. Even though they detoured us that way and it ripped it off my car, they did that. In fact, there was a guy in a vest directing me that way. So you're talking it's been 17 years. Have you guys switched contractors at all, or you just keep going with the same guy? Imagine if your bathroom renovation took 17 years and it's that far over budget and that much behind schedule. At what point do you say, we need new bids, we need a new contractor? I think that's part of the problem with Sound Transit. They don't know when to say no. They don't know when to. Wait a second. They've got the names of these companies here. Who do you think they're related to? How do you think they got these contracts in the first place? Is it that they're a certain kind of union that helps out the Democrat Party? Is it somebody's relative of somebody else? Because clearly they weren't qualified for this job, giving all the problems. Look, I know big construction programs have problems. I know that. And I know you're going to run into things you didn't know about. But how many things here can these guys screw up and continue to benefit off our money? Oh, my God. I got some companies to look up after the show today because now I want to know. I want to know how much Sound Transit has paid these companies and still had a subpar product. All these years, subpar product. Could have had a good light rail system. I've seen light rails done in much more complicated places and much better. Jerusalem, one of the best light rails I've ever seen. And they had to go through archaeological digs. And yet you guys couldn't get this done? Unbelievable. Anybody shocked at this point? No, of course not. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues, including Democrats want schools to do mental health assessments on kids. Really? Who's going to do them on the teachers? We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And just before we get into that miseducation, during the break, I was doom scrolling through social media. And remember how in our last segment I was talking about Virgil Flame Park, where the city of Seattle was cleaning out that homeless encampment? I said they're just going to go a couple blocks away and set up. Remember how I said that? Wouldn't you know? Speak of the sun, you shall see its rays, or speak of the devil, he shall appear. Pick whichever one. Our friends from We Heart Seattle, Andrea Suarez, posted this. They just cleared Virgil Flame Park, but all of them moved 2 blocks to Albert Davis Park. Outrageous, Mayor of Seattle. Yeah, man, do people not learn? You keep doing the same thing time and time again. This is what's going to happen. Bellevue School District is having a serious problem. The Bellevue School District, according to Como News, is selling off a chunk of land to a home builder to help fix its budget crisis. You know, this is the saddest thing ever. When I used to do a lot of volunteering for the public schools in our areas, I would volunteer at Bellevue High School. And Bellevue High School is where all the kids who didn't want to go to Rainier Beach High School or Garfield High School or any of those places, you were able to, back in the day, go to the better schools. But now people are fleeing the Bellevue School District just like they're fleeing these other school districts because they went insane. And now to fix their budget problems because they've lost so many students, they now have to start selling land. The undeveloped land is in the Westwood Highlands neighborhood, where not everyone is on board with a $30 million plan to build single-family homes. Following the district board's sign-off on Thursday, Bellevue School says it plans on entering into an agreement to sell off the wooded property, the Tri-Point Home. School officials at the district board meeting explained that more than 10-acre parcel is no longer needed. It is unfit for developing a school. And while the superintendent said this deal is going to accelerate the district's path to financial recovery. Stop. From the school district's perspective, this is actually a very smart move. If your enrollment is going down, not up, you don't need to expand. And by the way, this isn't a blip on the radar. More and more people are pulling their kids out of the public schools and sending them to private schools, especially in Bellevue, where they can afford these things. So this is actually very smart. Get rid of the land you don't need. But not everybody holds that way. Not everybody does. People want turned into low-income housing. People want turned into affordable housing. Some people still have the pie-in-the-sky ideals that, hey, we could build a school there one day. It's not turning around, guys. It's not going to turn around. You have only yourselves to blame for remote learning. The $30 million proceeds will speed up the district's new financial recovery plan by restoring the general fund reserve. The district has been under binding financial conditions with the state since July, as it faces a budget crisis due to dropping enrollment, a loss of state funding, and boosted operating costs. The operating costs are your own fault. You negotiated contracts that were too high, but on top of that, what you guys did is you spent COVID money on things that should have been, you knew that money was one time, and instead you created programs with it going, look at all the money, where's Scrooge McDuck? And that's what you guys did. And you guys created this problem, just like Seattle did, just like all these other ones did. A new state law allows any Washington school district under those conditions to add the profits for one-time sale to the district's general fund instead of the capital budget used for building projects and technology. By the way, it's very dumb to put this money in the general fund. Let me tell you why. You own how many buildings in the Bellevue School District? You know what you should do with capital money? Save it for capital projects. You need to fix roofs. You need to fix floors. You need to fix plumbing. You need to build new buildings. You should have saved it for that. Putting it in the general fund just means bye-bye, see ya, sayonara, that's it. It's gone. So they hope to close the sale, but this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard for them because also, let's not forget, they're not getting any more students. Enrollment is still going down. But also they are allowed to raise taxes on you because of a new bill signed into law by Bob Ferguson and passed by the Democrats, HB 2049, which allows the district to increase the local levy collection by $500 per student. That amounts to $5 million for the coming school year and $10 million every year after that, which means they're just going to tax you. So selling this little piece of property, not going to fix their problem. Meanwhile, this is one of the crazier things I've heard that schools are going to be responsible for now. According to the Post-Millennial, a bill signed into law in late July by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is receiving backlash with parents, experts, and lawmakers, saying the measure requiring annual mental health screenings for public school students is an overreach. Pritzker signed Senate Bill 1560 into law in July, which requires schools to give mental health screenings to students in third grade and higher at least once per year. Beginning in the 2027-2028 school year, the screening tools and guidelines will be developed in Illinois State Board of Education by September 2026 and carried out by school districts. So hang on a second. The school board is developing this, not medical professionals, a school board. You guys are the ones causing the mental health issues. DEI alone spends all its time telling the kids how they're all racists and how they all have to apologize for the original sin of being born white. And you guys are going to push this on them? Or how about the transing the kids? Where you guys say, oh, you're having mental health problems? You know what it is? You're in the wrong body. Let's cut something off or add something. That's what it's going to be. You want these people in charge of the mental health of these kids? That's insane. That's absolutely insane. By the way, it's bad enough you got a school nurse. I tell this story all the time. Mike, I'm sure I've told this one before, where I got sent home with cancer by the school nurse one time. Thank God I didn't have cancer. I had a thing on my neck, and she called my mom to come pick me up. Your son has cancer. Come on. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Basically, it should be, oh, your stomach's bothering you? Here's a little bit of Coca-Cola. We'll give you that. You'll be perfectly fine. All right? This is the kind of, or, some kid breaks his leg in gym. You need somebody to triage that. That's what you need. But, guys, really, you want to put the mental health of these kids in somebody else's hands? We know they're not up to the challenge. And yet now you want them to give mental health evaluations? They should be requiring mental health evaluations for your staff. Are the grades good in Illinois? No, they're not. And rather than focusing on making the grades better, they're coming up with this? What is this, an excuse to insert more critical race theory to trans more kids? Because that's what it sounds like to me. That's what they're doing in Illinois. Oh, wait a minute. I shouldn't have said this on the radio. Now I'm giving the Democrats ideas of what to do the next legislative session here in Washington. Absolutely horrifying. Question is anybody at the state level going to deal with the revelation that 1 in 7 voters here in Washington doesn't actually have the data needed to be registered to vote? Well, now officials are actually admitting it. When we come back, Glenn Morgan from We the Governed is going to tell you about the government official who responded to his bombshell report and how they said the quiet part out loud. We'll give you all details when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I didn't expect to have this next guest back so soon. We just had him on Friday. But the reason we're having back Glenn Morgan from We the Governed is just to catch everybody up for a second. He puts out a video which went very, very viral in our area, which showed that 1 out of every 7 voters in Washington doesn't have the correct data, accurate data, or even complete data to actually be registered to vote. So what's fascinating is after this thing goes viral, you have government officials who are forced to actually respond, and their response confirmed what he was saying. Joining us now to discuss, I love that you're laughing, joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line from We the Governed, Glenn Morgan. Welcome back, buddy.
Ari, thank you so much for having me back so soon. And you're right, this is pretty quick, getting me on and more than once in a week here.
So let me just summarize this again. So their response to tell everybody that you were wrong was to say, well, he's right, it's actually happening. It's just not as bad as he says? Is that right, an accurate summary?
Yeah, that was it. And then what was funny is that they also don't want to address the core issue that I brought up, which is that, it looks like around 700,000 plus don't have social numbers at all. And why that's significant is that the very system that the Secretary of State, VoteWA, and what they tell all the auditors is that they use the Social Security Administration data to verify that these are real people and that they're citizens. And how can you do that if you don't have a social number? And he ignores that part because that number's so big, it's scary, and probably he'd get fired if he actually told the truth. So instead, what he focused on was the issue I brought up as well, that there are a bunch of people. I was estimating about 25,000 based on the 29 county review that I had managed to stumble on that have no driver's license or social security number or any identification of any kind. And what he pointed out is no, it's not. It's 13,000. Which is basically
hang on a second. Hang on. So I want to make sure I got this right. It's not it's 1 or 2 or 10 or 15. No, it's not 25,000. It's 13,000. So it's not as bad as he's saying. So hang on. Let me do some quick math in my head. So let's go off their numbers for a second, assuming they're telling the truth. So 1 every 10?
Yeah,
1 in every 10?
Right. Well, and no, by the way, I got to point out there's no way to go back and verify anything they said. And keep in mind, they've kept this information secret from us for decades. It's never been published information before. And when I brought it up, of course, originally, it was kind of a subset of the data because I was mainly focused on the fact that how do you do Social Security Administration verification when you have no Social Security numbers? And he doesn't want to address that. He ignores that issue. And he conflates it a little bit with this, but we have this other thing, but that there's only 13,000 of them. It's not as bad as he says it is. But the other funny thing about this, too, when you really look at this issue, and this is a substantial challenge, is that years ago when I first started addressing this issue, they said, oh, nothing's happening. That's not true. There's no evidence of this ever happening once. Then they started to say, well, it's rare. And now the current talking point is, trust us, it's getting better. It used to be worse. And this is the official narrative. And so the biggest problem, and I do think this is a legitimate issue I brought up, the Secretary of State has all these work groups set up for making sure that VoteWA is working well, voter access, language translations, all kinds of different work groups they set up at the Secretary of State's office for elections. There isn't a single work group in the state of Washington for voter integrity or vote roll cleanup. They don't care. It's the lowest priority that they've had, and they don't care at all, and they do nothing to support it and nothing to try to do it. Now, to be fair, and I truly appreciate Stuart Holmes. He's a professional guy. He works at the Secretary of State's office, been there under Republicans, been there under Democrats. I've worked with him before. I'm not trying to really throw him under the bus. He's just the spokesperson for the disaster that he has to represent here. And keep in mind, if Stuart Holmes were to dare even remove one non-U.S. citizen from Washington State's voter rolls, he'd get fired, probably prosecuted, even for asking the question. So the fact that this is just being exposed, and at least he's addressing this issue right now, being forced to address the issue, and the first step in fixing the problem is admitting you have one. And so by going out and identifying these issues, we force them now for the first time in state history to start admitting that these problems are real. And, we can quibble and argue about whether it's 25,000 or 13,000. But either way, that's just one problem, right? That's just one of many problems. And he did ignore the biggest one, which is how do you do Social Security Administration background checks on anybody if you don't have a social number in the voter rolls?
This is absolutely crazy. We're talking with Glenn Morgan from We the Governed, and I'll confess is that for me, I always said, okay, if you guys really think this is happening, show me the proof. And until now, I haven't seen any proof. We've had a lot of theories. We've had one or two here or there, but this is huge, huge numbers. Whether it's 13,000, whether it's 25,000, whatever the case may be, these are big, big numbers, and this conflicts with federal law. So how do we get the feds involved in this? Because don't you need the list from Homeland Security to verify this?
Well, one of the things that the Homeland Security list would help, and it's been an open ask, I've been very clear about this in the last 2 videos on the subject, is that we're just asking Homeland Security in states like Washington, which have highly defective systems when it comes to validation of voter roll systems, just to go public with their non-U.S. citizens that live in Washington state. Not all of them are illegal, by the way. They could be here for H-1B visas, or they could be here for student visas or work visas or green cards, but they shouldn't be registered to vote. And as I posted in my video earlier, great comments, right, from people who live here in Washington. And many of these people, lots of people were putting comments up saying, hey, I went to jury summons duty, and there were 100 people there waiting to be on the jury, and they said, hey, you can't be on the jury if you're not a U.S. citizen. 30 people leave. And the only way you can be in the jury pool is if you're registered to vote. And people who hosted Chinese exchange students, and years after they go back to China, they're still getting ballots and jury summons. People that probably never tried to register to vote, but they're registered to vote. Now, let me be clear here, too. I don't blame Stuart Holmes or the Secretary of State specifically for this exact problem because they don't register anybody to vote. The people who are registered to vote in our state mostly are registered to the Department of Licensing. And it's been my contention now for years, based on whistleblowers who work there and some of whom have gone public, and I've done videos on this years ago, but others who have not gone public, that the Department of Licensing registers non-U.S. citizens to vote every single day they go to work. It's a consistent, regular pattern of behavior that they have there structurally, and if they don't do it, they get fired. So these people are on the voter rolls not because something Secretary of State did or the local auditors did. It's because the Department of Licensing has been directed to do this as policy, as the way they operate day to day. And so you get all these people in the system, and that doesn't mean they don't have social numbers. They might have social numbers because that's how they're getting Apple Health and SNAP benefits. But that list isn't even really being addressed. And I just think Homeland Security could save a lot of problems, a lot of drama, just by going public with it and help us just start to clean up the problem that they pretend like isn't happening here.
Yeah, so we can make sure there's no more convicted sex offenders who are illegal aliens who register white panel vans at the DMV and somehow end up registered to vote. I can't believe I just said that out loud. And I need to apologize to the audience for laughing at all this because this is really, really serious. But at the same time, it's so absurd. So absurd. This goes beyond our wildest dreams of what's actually happening. You should check out Glenn Morgan's videos over at We the Governed on YouTube, on whatever your preferred social media platform is. Glenn Morgan, amazing work as always. Thanks so much for being with us today.
All right, thanks for having me on the air.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder that coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to Pantera at the White River Amphitheater on August 22nd. Yet another reason to keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Yes, my friends, the law did win, and we'll tell you how right now with this breaking news.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
So he fought the law, but the law won. We told you about the man who escaped the Department of Corrections custody at SeaTac earlier in the show. Well, now it looks like he is back in custody. So according to Como News, the prisoner, who was identified as 20-year-old John Nino, fled from officers Tuesday evening, crossed over the pedestrian bridge on the east side of the station, headed toward International Boulevard, and somehow managed to board the light rail and get away. Well, the last guy, what was it, Mike? Like a month, 6 weeks, 2 months before they found the guy? Somewhere in that range before they found the last guy who had escaped via the light rail. Well, this guy was found and taken back into custody on Wednesday afternoon, according to the Department of Corrections. Now, we don't know where they found him yet. We don't know how they found him yet. But Mike mentioned to me during the break, the easiest thing for this guy to do would have been to just go to a homeless encampment and then disappear. Just disappear. In fact, I can't believe they found the last guy on Capitol Hill when all he had to do is get out of Dodge, run, flee, go to a different part of the country. It's like that scene in The Fugitive, where they find the other guy who escaped the bus with John Kimball, and you go, why'd you go to Chicago, man? Why'd you go there? U.S. Marshal's going to find you. Tommy Lee Jones is going to find you. Yeah, when they think that you have Dr. Richard Kimball, but then they get the drug dealer's son, and then he says, oh, yeah, my mom's been renting a room to Dr. Richard Kimball underneath the house. I love that movie. By the way, that movie still holds up. Still holds up. Still an absolutely great movie. You know who doesn't think her city has a public safety problem? Karen Bass, mayor of Los Angeles. Karen Bass, who let her city burn and let rioters take over the freeway. She was doing the interview circuit, and she was claiming that even with all the homeless encampments, even with all the rampant crime, even with flash mobs who don't dance, but they steal things, oh, no, her city's perfectly safe. Give a listen.
It's interesting which mayors and which cities he's chosen to focus on. In Los Angeles, where you have crime down a 60-year low in terms of homicides, homelessness is down. He points to homelessness and he points to crime in Washington, D.C. I don't know what's going on there, but I imagine that they are not suffering in the despair that he described in his press conference that in any way would warrant the use of federal officials in this manner.
I'm sorry, homelessness is down? What are you talking about? I actually went and checked the numbers, Mike. Do you want to know how macabre this is? Homelessness is down in L.A. Do you know why? Because so many of them have been dying on the streets. It's not down because they've solved it. It's because the problem is so bad that the people who've been living there for months, weeks, years are dying on the streets. Dying on the streets. That's why the numbers are down. That's not the brag you think it is. Oh, she wasn't done.
You talked also about the protests being important. What do you think people can do that would matter? Can local officials establish any sort of limiting factor? What do you think is the most valuable pushback against things like this for people who object to it?
Well, I can tell you when they were doing the random snatching or kidnappings of people off of our streets, when people gathered, they backed away on many occasions. And so in Los Angeles, we have a rapid response network where everybody is alerted. If you see masked men getting out of unmarked cars, let everybody in the area know.
Wait. Hang on a second. Are you bragging about impeding federal law enforcement? Are you saying, hey, we need to tell everybody where ICE is operating and we need to target the ICE agents, not the illegal alien criminals they are there to arrest? Hey, lady, if I need your advice on how to burn down a city, I know just who to call. If I know if I need somebody to give me advice on how not to rebuild a city that I burned down, I know just who to call. If I need advice on how to let rioters take over freeways, we'll call you. If we need advice on how to order a Waymo car to a riot so we can light it on fire for no reason whatsoever, we'll call you, Karen Bass. You kidding me with this? Hey, by the way, this is the same kind of stuff we're seeing in Chicago, and the same kind of stuff we're seeing in New York, and the same kind of stuff we're seeing in Seattle, and the same kind of stuff we're seeing in Portland. Karen Bass is like, oh, well, I don't know why he's attacking all these specific cities. I don't know why he's calling them out, because they're all run by the same failed policies every single time. Every single time. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. There's a terrorist group active at the University of Washington. A new report claims so. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to see Pantera. But before we get to any of that, we go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Stephen in Auburn. Stephen, what's up, man?
Hey, Ari, it's good to hear your voice. Hey, I was just coming to follow up from what we had in our last segment, where if I want to remind us in the audience is that we were talking about, how Karen Bass is making all this mess and noise about, the crime's down. Why do we need to have our cities taken over? And I was like, oh, my goodness, the Socialist Party of America is trying to make themselves out to be the cool people again when all they've done the past 20 years is move goalposts.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, all they've done for, saying the environment is going to kill us, we're all going to die of being burned to death, is because, they moved the goalpost. Oh, it didn't happen this year. Well, 10 years down the road, we're all going to die.
Well, that's the changing. Oh, it's climate change, right? Climate change,
it's
not global cooling,
change.
not global warming.
It's none of that, and they're going to change what it's called. They're going to change what date it's going to happen, and they're doing the same thing now with crime, right? Where they're going to change the laws, as they've done here in Washington, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saying that this is no longer a felony; it's a misdemeanor, or this is what this is now, and it's changing their numbers for them so that they can feel good about themselves when they say it's gone down.
Yep.
It's not.
Well, actually, you know how they mess with the numbers in D.C.? It's fascinating. So earlier in the show, we talked about how the Democrats keep saying crime's gone down, crime's gone down. And here's what they were doing in D.C. They were recording in the data set. They were recording felonies as misdemeanors and misdemeanors as not happening. So what do you think they're doing in other places? Now, actually, if somebody in our audience, like our friends over from Doge, Washington, want to do a little deep dive and compare the dashboard numbers from the city of Seattle to actual crimes that are going on here, I wonder if we're going to find out the exact same thing.
We may just see some similarities to those. I think so.
Because for me, here's my long contention. My long contention is you can't hide the big violent crimes, right? You can't hide that somebody died. You can't hide the big assaults. You can't hide that kind of stuff. It usually gets reported. My thing is that people aren't reporting a lot of stuff anymore. They're just going to the hospital thinking, oh, cops are never going to find the guy. But you can't hide the death, right? Somebody shows up with a gunshot or a stab wound or something. You can't hide that. Or can you? My long contention has also been property crime. It's not going down. People aren't reporting it. Like when my wife's car got broken into after we went to a bar, we didn't report it. We just called the insurance company, and the insurance company didn't even need a police report because it happens so often. Just your insurance rates go up. So I wonder if they're doing something similar here to what they're doing in D.C. I wonder if they're doing something similar in Los Angeles to what they're doing in D.C. Steve, great points. Moving the goalposts, great points. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Dyslexia for cure found. Right, that was my moment today. Okay, so switching gears, but not really. Talk about moving the goalposts like Stephen in Auburn just brought up. I saw Zoran Mamdani move the goalposts like you wouldn't believe. So a lot of you ask me all the time, you say, Ari, why did Jews vote for Democrats? And I say, I'm not sure they are anymore. And remember we did a whole deep dive after the election where they said Joe Biden still won the Jewish vote? And I go, I'm not so sure he did. I'm looking at these numbers and these numbers. And then a poll was released showing Joe Biden overwhelmingly won the Jewish vote. And I said, there's no way that's true. No way. What did we find? They didn't poll anybody in New York. They didn't poll anybody in Los Angeles. They didn't pull anybody in Florida. So you leave out, and Chicago, and other huge Jewish communities. So you leave out the biggest Jewish communities to prove your point, and I assume you messed with the data in other ways too. A poll came out last week which said that Mamdani is overwhelmingly winning the Jewish vote in New York. Now, the Jewish vote actually matters in New York because they make up a huge chunk of New York City. And I'm thinking to myself, no way. There is no way. I have never met a single Jew in my life, even my liberal friends, who said they would vote for Mamdani. They wouldn't. There is no way this is accurate. Look, I still have some Jewish friends that voted for Joe Biden because they hate Trump that much. But most of them voted for Trump, overwhelmingly voted for Trump. I can't find a single person who likes Mamdani or his message. So wouldn't you know that apparently a new poll is out, and this is from Siena College. Siena College is not my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. In fact, they're on the other side of things. They're my little red book, Mao's poll book. That's where they are right now. And Siena College shows that 75% of the Jewish population of New York is voting against Mamdani. Not voting for Cuomo or voting for somebody else, just voting for anybody but Mamdani. And it turns out when you dig into this other poll, the one that was done originally, when we talk about moving the goalposts, this poll was done by Mamdani's campaign, the original one, and only polled people that were friendly to them and only went to the most radical of the radical of the radicals. So the people who identify as Jews and aren't actually Jews, they're the ones taking these polls. According to Al Jaminer, Zoran Mamdani overwhelmingly unpopular with New York City Jews. A new Siena College poll shows Democratic mayoral nominee Zoran Mamdani is facing an overwhelming backlash from Jewish voters in New York City, with a staggering 75% holding an unfavorable opinion of the Queen's Democrat and just 15% viewing him favorably. Now, that's important. So wait a second. He didn't get 25%. He got 15%. 10% said, I don't know. Now, I still think 15% is too high. But do you know who that 15% is? The kids on college campuses, the lunatics in these activist synagogues, and we got them here. The ones who, as a Jews, that's who they are. The numbers mark Mamdani as one of the least popular figures among Jewish New Yorkers, undermining narratives that the progressive lawmaker enjoys substantial support from the Jewish community. His unfavorable rating among Jewish voters is more than 38 points higher than his standing with the general electorate, where 37% view him negatively compared to 28% favorably. The remainder respond either don't know or have no opinion. The steep disapproval comes as Mamdani continues to face criticism for adopting explicitly anti-Israel rhetoric during his campaign. He has repeatedly accused Israel of apartheid, called for a U.S. arms embargo on the country, and championed pro-Hamas causes. He has also accused Israel of committing a so-called genocide in Gaza and refused to affirm its right to exist as a Jewish state. So how is this guy getting the votes he has? By the way, Ambassador Mike Huckabee to Israel is actually having a whole bunch of guests, influencers from our side of the political aisle. In fact, I saw Jane Zirkle's out there. Jane Zirkle is one of the people who works with Steve Bannon, and you know who she's hanging out with? Cam Higbee. Cam Higbee's out there right now. He's in Israel on that trip, checking and seeing it for themselves. Here's what Ambassador Mike Huckabee said during that trip.
Why does Hamas hate GHF? One of the things they demanded in one of the negotiations just 2.5 weeks ago was that GHF had to be shut down. Why would Hamas want to shut it down? I'll tell you why. Because GHF method of getting food has really hurt their capacity to control the food market, and it's costing them money. Otherwise, they would say, sure, go ahead and bring the food in. All we care about is people getting to eat. But they don't care about people getting to eat. They care that they eat. And if you look at the people from Hamas when they get photographed, they're well fed. None of them are hungry. I guarantee you, look at their faces, look at their bodies. And instead of food, they could use some Ozempic.
What's GHF? I can't speak English today. GHF is the program that America is running that's actually getting food to Palestinians, but it bypasses Hamas. And when it bypasses Hamas, Hamas can't make profits. And then they complain, oh, there's starvation. Do you know the UN has actually changed how they define famine so that they can hold Israel responsible, even though it's not actually happening in Gaza? They didn't change it for Somalia. They didn't change it for Sudan. They didn't change it for anywhere else in the world, just Israel. Why should you even care? Because these lies cause chaos. And these lies are infiltrating even our own institutions here in Washington. From Jewish Insider, the University of Washington is pursuing criminal charges for anti-Israel student vandals, which we're talking about the ones who caused over $1 million worth of damage to the engineering building, more than 30 anti-Israel demonstrators who occupied a University of Washington engineering building at the end of the spring semester, causing more than $1 million worth of damage, are now being investigated by a local attorney's office for potential criminal charges, and they might actually be involved with the terrorist group, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Hang on a second. We've known this for a while. Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine is an actual U.S. designated terror group. They're not the only ones who've been operating at the University of Washington. Sami Dun, who we've discussed many, many times, they're operating at the University of Washington. Now we've got a domestic terrorist group at the University of Washington in Antifa. And you've got two foreign terrorist groups. You've got the Popular Liberation Front for Palestine, and you've got Sami Dun, both U.S. designates, U.S. of terrorist organizations. This is what's at our college campuses. You know, we keep asking why charges haven't been filed yet on the 30 Antifa or anti-Israel activists that caused over $1 million in damage to the engineering building. We keep asking why. The better question we should be asking is, why are there not federal charges? If they're involved with terrorist organizations, as this article claims, as we've seen online, as I've discussed many times before, why aren't the feds going after them? This is the Trump administration. They should be going after them like nobody's business. That's what they should be doing. So why aren't they going after them? This is the kind of stuff that I want to know. The Seattle Public University's investigation into criminal charges comes as a secure community network, a safety and security network for American Jewish communities, found that a manifesto released by Super UW, which was a student group that was published on Medium shortly before the building takeover began, was inspired by a foreign terrorist entity. The document praised October 7th terrorist attacks by Hamas in Israel as a heroic victory and said the group looks to the rich history of struggle in our university for strength and inspiration as we take action. Super UW also released a statement of solidarity with the Sami Dun Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network, a fundraising arm of the terrorist group Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which was designated as a terror group by the U.S. Treasury Department in October of 2024. Hang on a second. October of 2024? That's not Joe Biden. Oh, sorry, that's not President Trump. Joe Biden was in office when that was going on. Quote, the fact that this action was inspired by a foreign terrorist entity is gravely concerning and should be alarm for the broader Jewish community, said Sally Kane, president and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Seattle. When foreign terrorist organizations are allowed to infiltrate university campuses, the implications are significant, and we hope the university leadership will continue to follow up on this incident seriously with consequences for those responsible after appropriate due process. Miriam Weingarten, co-director of Chabad UW with her husband, Rabbi Mendel Weingarten, said she hoped that those responsible for the damage from the May protest would be held responsible in a way that would deter any future actions. She said doing so would help the Jewish students feel safe and comfortable on campus, but in the meantime, Chabad continues to be a space for Jewish students to become more confident in their Jewish pride. Carrie Sleeper, who's with SCN Deputy Director of Intelligence and Information Sharing, warned in June at a congressional hearing about the rise of anti-Semitism that the terror ties associated with the UW demonstrators are part of a larger pattern of protest on campuses around the country, claiming that this is not a protest in the traditional sense. It is information and intimidation campaign targeting Jewish students and institutions, often through violent acts. Now, hang on a second here. We spoke about earlier in the show that you now have paid protesters who are being hired in Washington, D.C., and they probably have been being hired for a long, long time. You have these companies that are crowd fillers. They're seat fillers for Broadway shows, for concerts, for festivals, for whatever, and they're being hired to be protesters. How much of what we saw at the University of Washington was hired? I remember that day, what was it, 4 days after October 7th, I'm at the University of Washington, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of protesters there. And I'm looking around, and they're all white kids. So I assume they're mostly the kinds of kids on a college campus. I mean, of course, there's some people who claim to be Palestinian or whatever riling them up. But I'm looking around, and there are always a whole bunch of white kids. And I'm wondering, do they actually know what they're doing? Or are they brainwashed? But now I'm wondering how many of them were paid to be there. And where's the money coming from to pay them? If Sami Dun is being funded by the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which is a terrorist organization. Sami Dun is a terrorist organization. Where do you think the money's coming from? I love when they all have the same signs. It's amazing how those Hamas flags appear all of a sudden. Where does it all come from? We joke that they got the Amazon starter kit with the keffiyehs and with the flags and with everything else. But what if terrorist organizations are actually paying for this stuff on college campuses? It's not some college campus like Columbia on the other side of the country. What if it's happening here in Seattle? How many of these people who went with Kshama Sawant were paid protesters? You know, I kind of want to go back through her office expenses and see if she was spending money with these groups. Because remember how many people she used to have show up at the protest, and now she's got like 3? Why is Kshama all alone? No friends, no friends. She doesn't have the army she used to have. She could go out and bribe homeless people like she used to do with a sandwich and a T-shirt. Why isn't that working anymore? Does she not have our money to spend on this anymore? According to the quote, these trends are fueled by a persistent ecosystem of anti-Israel networks operating in the U.S. online. Groups such as Students for Justice in Palestine, Within Our Lifetime, Unity of Fields, and online propaganda hubs consistently amplify messaging aligned with Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Iranian-backed information centers. This is what's happening on University of Washington's campus. I have seen it with my own eyes. You have kids on campus selling gear for Hamas, giving out propaganda from Hamas. And was all that paid for this entire time by terrorist-linked organizations, by terrorist organizations themselves? Is the FBI actually going to investigate this? Well, now let me ask you another question. Were these groups also paying the protesters who took over I-5, who nothing happened to them? Were they also paying the protesters who took over the freeway leading to SeaTac and nothing happened to them? Were they paying the protesters who shut down the university bridge? Were they paying the protesters who did any of this stuff over the past couple of years since October 7th? And if so, why isn't this being investigated by the feds? Because to me, this sounds like a foreign terrorist organization was paying people here in Seattle, and they were happily taking the money. There needs to be a federal investigation, and there needs to be federal charges. Too bad we don't have a U.S. attorney out here in Seattle. One of the things I'm mad at the Trump administration about is that we still don't have a U.S. attorney for Western Washington. Maybe the fact that they got Pete Serrano over in the eastern part of the state is good news that they're going to be looking for somebody in the western part of the state soon. And I hope it's a name that we know, and I hope it's a bulldog that's going to go after all the things we want them to go after. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, the Trailblazers are sold. Does this mean we're getting the Sonics back? Probably not, but we'll give you all the details on it. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to see Pantera. Yet another reason always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I saw this headline this morning, and I actually sent an email to all my coworkers. And I said, countdown to Click Daniels saying the Sonics are coming back in 3, 2, 1. Because what happened? The NBA's Portland Trail Blazers have been sold to the NHL's Carolina Hurricanes owner. According to KATU, the Portland Trail Blazers have a new owner, and it's going to be, who is it here? The owner, Tom Dundon, who's the NHL Carolina Hurricanes owner, who's buying the Portland Trail Blazers from the estate of Paul Allen for a valuation of over $4 billion. The estate of Paul Allen announced in May that it had begun the process of looking for an owner. Allen died in 2018 at the age of 65 from complications from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He bought the team in 1988 for $70 million. That's quite the investment, by the way. They're going from $70 million to $4 billion. Does that mean they're going to move here? If your team is worth $4 billion in Portland, I don't think you're going anywhere. I just don't. But I think what this has bigger implications for, and Mike, you can correct me for my ignorance on this topic, I think it has bigger implications for the Seahawks. So if they're finally selling stuff, what's going to happen with the Seahawks, who have been caught in ownership hell for a while now? You wonder why they're not making big moves. It's because who's the ownership group of the Seahawks? Didn't she get control of them, but she's supposed to be selling them or something, Mike?
That's correct. I don't remember what year that is, what the interval is, but we're still within that window because it's like when there's an ownership change like this, you have a certain amount of time to liquidate the team. And I think we talked about this a bit last year. And even then it was like, oh man, well, call me back in like 2 years or something like that. But that's just from the dome. I haven't looked into it in a bit.
Right. So I don't think this means, we're going to move the Trailblazers up to Seattle. I don't think it means
that.
In
fact, quite the opposite.
Right. Exactly. They're going to stay exactly where they are. I think instead you move a team when it's not doing financially well. When a team goes from $70 million to $4 billion, the Portland Trail Blazers doing just fine. You know why? Is there a baseball team down in Portland? Is there a football team down in Portland? This is what they have. So why would you move that? No, you want a team that's failing. Is there a basketball team in California that wants out? Because all the other teams are leaving. So can we get does Oakland have a basketball team these days? I haven't followed basketball in years. I don't think they do. But can we get a team from somewhere that's doing badly and move them out here? It's the Major League idea. You all saw the movie Major League, right? She wants to get the team bad enough so they'll move to Miami. But accidentally, she puts together a super team with Charlie Sheen and the president from 24 and Willie Mays Hayes. She puts them all together.
That's also secretly the plot of F1 the movie, too.
Yes.
It's the same thing. That
Exactly.
evil guy is like, oh, man, Brad Pitt's going to, make the team bad. Turns out he makes the team good.
It's like,
whoops.
Everybody says, that's what they did to the Sonics. Not really, guys.
No.
That's not what happened with the Sonics. It's a little bit more complicated. Everybody's right and everybody's wrong with what happened with the Sonics. I'm looking at this objectively. So, looking at this, I really think this has more implications for the Seahawks. And I don't think the Seahawks are going anywhere. That's not what I'm saying. But are we going to see an ownership change with the Seahawks sometime soon? I think that is likely where something like this is pointing. In fact, Mike, I did a quick search. I didn't see Chris Daniels post anything about this, meaning the Sonics are coming back to town. I didn't see the usual clickbaity headlines.
Yeah, no, he's been remarkably quiet. He's been doing some stuff about FIFA and Ichiro, and that's about it.
That's about it.
Weirdly quiet on the
You know what
Click
I think
Daniels
it is?
front.
Because when you have that one line in there, from $70 million to $4 billion, I think anybody with half a brain is going to go, really, dude? Really? Or he's been listening to the show and knows that we're going to do that for sure.
I was going to say, I would like to hope that he's been bitten by the self-awareness bug
Yes.
and realized that him being such a single issue commentator has kind of made him a bit of a laughingstock.
Yes, which is too bad.
I mean, he does great reporting in other contexts.
Exactly. It's just this one. I mean, I will say, the stadium should be named after him or something if they actually come back, because he has kept that dream alive. But at the same time, it's a little ridiculous at this point. By the way, got another local story that some of you are going to go, this is setting off warning bells already. So a nonprofit filed a complaint Tuesday against the Seattle Police Department for its handling of an event held by a Christian pro-life group in counter-protest that resulted in nearly 24 arrests. Do you know what they're talking about? Remember back in May when our friends from Pursuit Northwest had a concert in Cal Anderson Park? And do you remember when the Antifa types started throwing bottles of urine at them and water balloons filled with awful stuff and then started attacking them and attacking police officers and punching them? Well, Capitol Hill Pride. Wait a minute. Capitol Hill Pride? So you guys are admitting you attacked police officers? That's what you're saying? You're admitting that you threw bottles of water filled with urine at Christians? They filed an Office of Police Accountability complaint over what happened in Cal Anderson Park on May 24th. SPD failed to review and cancel the anti-trans May 24th event, which they were informed of 3 days before the event would pose a high risk for conflict and safety. So you're mad they were allowed to exercise their First Amendment rights in a park in Seattle. And you're saying, therefore, you were justified in attacking them? I just want to make sure I got this right. Mike, I'm going to give an example from my own life. You know how fired up I was a year ago that Macklemore was having that concert in Seward Park, in the biggest Jewish neighborhood in town, to raise money for terrorist organizations on the Sabbath. You know how fired up I was. You know how pissed off I was. You know how I was working with the police and everybody else I possibly could to try and keep this thing safe. Did any Jews go down there and attack them? Did anybody go down to that concert? No, they didn't do that at all. If there was, there'd be video everywhere blaming us for it. That's what happened. And you know what? A lot of Israeli soldiers, former Israeli soldiers, live in that area. And yet, nobody went down there. So Capitol Hill Pride is saying, they triggered us, so we had to throw the bottles of urine at them. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They said they failed to provide a safe space between the rally and the counter-protesters. Wait a second. I saw the video. Jonathan Cho has it. There's tons of space. You lunatics decided to breach it. And then they said they made numerous unwarranted arrests. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So then you guys attacked them, threw the bottles of urine at them and such, and you're saying those arrests were unwarranted? Which one is it, guys? You attacked them because you were triggered, or the arrests were unwarranted? You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's making no sense. Then they say they failed to stop the event in a timely manner and exhibited biased policing. Biased? You mean went after the people who were throwing the bottles of urine and attacking the Christians? Them? And they did stop the event. And by the way, they're in hot water for stopping the event. But it was you lunatics who made that happen because you decided to attack the Christians. You guys have lost your minds, absolutely lost your minds. But they want some attention, I guess. I guess they haven't gotten attention in a while, so that's why they're doing this. When we come back, my friends, representative from the RNC will be swinging by to tell us the positive signs they're seeing in the economy and what it means for us here in Washington. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, right now, a lot of people are saying President Trump promised all these things and he's delivering and we're happy. Public safety is better. The border is better. Foreign policy, all this stuff is amazing. But the economy, we want it to be doing a little bit better. People are worried what the impact of the tariffs have. And there's this term going around called panicins, which I've seen on social media, which is people who are panicking. But at the same time, I'm looking at the stock market and it's going up. And all the indicators are going in the right place. But at the same time, especially for us here in Washington, it feels like we're kind of stuck right where we are. And part of that might be due to the Federal Reserve. Joining us now to discuss and analyze the finances of what's going on is Carla Sands. She's the CEO of Vintage Capital Group. She's the vice chair at America First Policy Institute, and she's the former ambassador to Denmark. I can't think of a more qualified person to discuss all this stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my gosh, Ari, I'm so happy to talk to you in the middle of a beautiful week.
Yes, it is a beautiful week here in the golden age of America. So let's start with the finances first. An argument I have made on my show repeatedly is, they said that tariffs were going to cause economic catastrophe. They haven't. But at the same time, what's happening is a lot of people are holding on to their money because with interest rates so high, they don't want to borrow at high interest rates because then they're locked into them to buy a house, to buy a car, to borrow money to expand their business, any of that. Do you think that's what's really holding back the economy?
Well, I think that people are a little bit shocked by the speed. It's the acceleration. It's like we're at Mach 3 with President Trump in office, and we just came off a sleepy high government spending 4 years, which was great for really rich people and really poor people, but the giant middle, the wages were going down and the inflation was spiking. But as a matter of fact, these tariffs have not caused inflation. There is no inflation, according to the Council of Economic Advisors. In fact, prices have gone down. Gas is down 9% since President Trump was elected. Energy's down 9%. Hotels down 5%. Eggs down 64%. And the average American family already has saved this year, so far, $2,100 because of President Trump's policies and his executive orders and the big, beautiful bill.
Now, unfortunately, here in Washington State, we're not seeing so much of that because they have so many taxes on gas that are actually continuously going up that I look at the 35 other states where gas prices have gone down, and I said, those states seem to be a different color from our state. So if you really want to know what's happening, you got to look at what's happening with your local legislatures as well. So with regard to the Federal Reserve, now the rumor has it that they're going to drop those interest rates in September. If they actually do that, do you think that's going to be the piece that's really going to make the economy skyrocket?
Well, I think that, and the stock market is not the economy, right? The economy is our lived lives and how much we're spending and how much we're making, and can we afford to buy a home? That's how we experience the economy. It's not the stock market, but the stock market is going to really explode. I think they're already pricing in the cut. Jerome Powell, President Trump has said it over and over again, is late to the party every single time. And that's when he caused the inflation to spike so hard because he ratcheted the interest rates up, but it was too late under Biden, and he did it so fast that the market couldn't accommodate it. And now he's late to the party again. He should have lowered the interest rates by 25 or 50 basis points just this month. And so I do believe they're pricing in 2 rate cuts this year. And, it's looking more and more like he was political, that he lowered those interest rates right before Joe Biden's election and then right after. So, and I think that he's being investigated now because of the unbelievable spending on this palace, this multi-billion-dollar palace that he's redoing at hundreds of billions of dollars. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. And so he's clearly not very good with money if that's how he spends it. I'll tell you, when my embassy, they wanted to do a renovation and spend $40 million. And I looked at what they were going to do, and I looked at the money, and I said, I'm turning this off. We are not doing a $40 million renovation project on a 100,000 square foot building. It should cost $4 or $5 million, not 10x. And so you have to treat the people's money like it's your own, and President Trump clearly is doing that.
I remember when that happened with the Jerusalem embassy, same kind of thing. When he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, he said, we don't need to build a building from scratch. We've got this one building right here. I think it was not an outpost. That's the wrong word for it. But there was some kind of American institution. And he said, why should we spend millions, if not billions of dollars when we have a building right here? Let's just renovate the building we have. And that's what happened.
And I visited it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's gorgeous. I was there once myself. We're talking with Carla Sands, who's the CEO of Vintage Capital Group, vice chair at the America First Policy Institute, and former ambassador to Denmark. So let's talk about the tariffs. This is in your wheelhouse, the relationship with foreign countries. So a lot of countries just came running on over to the U.S. and said, yeah, let's make a deal. It seems like the only ones who don't want to make a deal are the ones who want to be adversaries, you might say, of the United States, or the ones who are trying to prove political points. It seems like everybody else realizes, hey, we were lucky enough to rip them off all these years. Now let's make something fair so we don't get ripped off. Is that how you're reading the situation?
It is. And these deals are unbelievable. He's getting countries like South Korea, like Japan, like the EU, to literally invest hundreds of billions of dollars into the United States, committing their capital. And in some cases, he's able to direct those investments where he thinks they'd best be served in the United States economy. I mean, this is only the beginning. This is the first 6 months, so the first 1/8 of his presidency. And when we think about where we're going to be in just a couple of years, it's so exciting. And the deals that haven't gotten done that are a little harder, Switzerland or China or India, these are hard deals to get. These are hard negotiators, and it's going to be hard, but we'll get a deal done. And even if he doesn't, we're still going to continue having trade with these countries. But China is using trade as a weapon, as you know, trying to hold us up to give them the chips, which we need to hold back from them so they don't have supremacy in quantum computing and AI, because if they do, it's game over for U.S. security and our capital markets. So we have to win in the AI and the quantum computing race. But India is buying Russian gas, and now President Trump is saying, look, and it's one of the ways he got Putin to the table. If you keep buying Russian gas, we're going to tariff you 100% more. And so that's a way to help end the Ukrainian war. I love that President Trump is the president that is the art of the deal guy, because I've never seen a president, certainly not in my lifetime, be able to actually get deals like this done on behalf of the American people. It's making us richer. Already we have $154 billion in tariff revenue that have come in, and $29 billion just in July. President Trump wants to share some of this windfall with the American people, but I'd like to see him pay down the debt.
In the last few minutes we have with Carla Sands, and looking at your ambassador experience, you mentioned Russia. We've got the big summit on Friday in Alaska between President Trump and President Putin. Now, you mentioned the gas being one of the ways you can do an off-ramp. We've already seen pieces of this deal, which are land swaps, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think is really the way to get this war to end? Is it just saying to Russia, hey, we're going to stop everybody from buying from you. We're going to make everybody buy from us. We're ramping up our oil production. How much longer do you want this to go on for? And do you think Putin can just wait that out and wait for the next president who he thinks he might have an easier time with if it's a Democrat?
You know, I don't think he dares wait. I know he's created a wartime economy in Russia, but look at the deals that President Trump has done. I think it's one peace deal a month. He just did the Azerbaijan and Armenia deal. They're working toward peace and healthy trade and diplomatic relations. Well, those are, you know, I think that there's a lot of pressure on Putin now because China's also buying Russian gas. And I know that's going to be part of the trade deal is China has to stop. So I think that Putin's getting calls and there's pressure from India and China. I think he gets some kind of a ceasefire done. And now you can see Macron and the EU folks who are, you know, they let this war happen in their neighborhood and they're not paying for it until now, until President Trump. We were paying for most of the war costs. I think they're pressuring Trump not to give up any land of Ukraine, as if Ukraine can prosecute a war at all without us. They cannot because they don't have the arms or the manpower. They're running out of men. So I think that a deal does get done. I'm not sure what it looks like. It's a very exciting time to watch President Trump and his team bring peace around the world. It's such a blessing to have a peace president. And I think because of it, he does deserve many times over the Nobel Peace Prize.
It'll be fun to watch all the people on the left's heads explode if this war ends under President Trump when President Biden actually started this mess. Carla Sands, who is the CEO of Vintage Capital Group, Vice Chair at America First Policy Institute, and former ambassador to Denmark. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Ari. Great to be with you.
Great to have you. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headline, your chance to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card and tickets to Pantera. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. Earlier in the show, we played the clips of President Trump talking about who was being honored at the Kennedy Center. Well, it's not just Kiss. There's a whole lot of other relics from our childhood that are being honored, and people who have had amazing careers like Sylvester Stallone.
Next, we look forward to honoring three-time Oscar nominee, Golden Globe Award winner, an action movie icon, and a friend of mine. He's a very unique man. He's somebody that doesn't do these things. I said, I wonder if he'll accept, because some people don't really want to be honored. They don't care. But he was very honored to be honored, I will tell you. He's a very special guy. A real talent, never been given the credit for the talent. There was nobody else could have done the roles that he did like he did. I'm not even close, and they've tried, and they didn't work out too well. His name is Sylvester Stallone.
Now, President Trump went on to talk about Sylvester Stallone and all his roles and all his starring stuff. But what I really love about this is my father loves Tony Robbins, loves his tapes, loves his clips. And I remember one time listening to one of them because he brings in all these stars to talk. Sylvester Stallone gave this really inspiring speech. That's not who you expect to hear inspiring from. When he was talking about making the first Rocky and how he had to sell his dog and how he was homeless and living out of his car. And the movie made him a star, but he kept to his dream. And the first thing he did was buy his dog back. When he got the contract for the movie, he got the money for the movie. First thing he did was buy his dog back. That's really an American amazing story. It's funny that this comes out today because Fox News had a story about Sylvester Stallone with reference to Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was in Rocky III, and he's playing Thunder Lips. Now, we were really young when Rocky III came out, so Hulk Hogan wasn't really Hulk Hogan yet. He hadn't attained that superstardom. Now, when you look back, you go, of course they got Hulk Hogan. It's the 1980s, and he's huge and all that. But he wasn't that big yet. But Sylvester Stallone talks about how he hadn't made it big yet. Meanwhile, Sylvester Stallone, this is the third Rocky movie. He's already done, I believe, one Rambo movie, if not two by that point. He's already a big star. And he's saying you could see the stardom in this guy. So really nice that he could be gracious about that as well. And I really look forward to the Kennedy honors of the Kennedy Awards this year because you're going to see Trump, you're going to see Kiss, and you're going to see Sylvester Stallone. It's like the 80s on full display for everybody. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information. Discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. And we are giving away two tickets to Pantera at the White River Amphitheater on August 22nd. Get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. A copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. And two tickets to Pantera at the White River Amphitheater on August 22nd. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for us today, but fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.